Have you ever just stopped and wondered, what makes us, us? Why are we the ones studying every other animal and not the other way around? Well, the answer is locked inside our heads, in an organ that holds a very big and very, very expensive secret. Let's get into it. So here it is, the central puzzle of the human brain. It's tiny, really, only about 2% of your body mass, but it's an absolute energy hog. It gobbles up a quarter of all the fuel your body needs every single day. The big question is, how in the world did our ancestors ever manage to power such a demanding piece of equipment? 25%. Just let that sink in. If you're on a 2,000-calorie diet, that's 500 calories spent just to keep your brain, running. It's a staggering metabolic cost, and for a long, long time, scientists were stumped by it. Now, you might be thinking, well, obviously, we just have the biggest brains, right? But that's not it at all. A whale's brain can weigh up to 9 kilograms. That's 6 times heavier than ours. If sheer size was all that mattered, we'd probably be taking orders from them. So clearly there's something else going on. And this brings us to a really fundamental problem in evolution, the energy dilemma. How do you fuel a super powerful brain without basically starving the rest of your body, especially if you're a primate? So neuroscientist Susanna Herculano-Hausel figured it out. She discovered that the key isn't brain size. It's the number of neurons you can pack inside. And it turns out that primates, including us, just have a much more efficient, more economical way of packing neurons into our brains than other animals do. For any given size, a primate brain is just stuffed with way more neurons, those are the little processing units doing all the thinking, than a rodent brain. It's like having a computer with a way more powerful processor, but in the exact same size case. As primates, we're just built different. So what's our magic number? Well, a new way of counting revealed that we have, on average, 86 billion neurons. 16 billion of those are in the cerebral cortex, which is where all the complex, abstract thought happens. That gives us, by far, the most neurons of any primate on Earth. But wait, this just creates another puzzle, right? Why don't the great apes, who are so much bigger and stronger than us, have bigger brains with more neurons? A gorilla can be 3 times our size, but its brain is only a third the size of ours. The answer is simple: energy. They just can't afford the calories for both a huge body and a brain packed with neurons. It's a trade-off. And this reveals a kind of metabolic trap. A gorilla already spends about 8.5 hours a day just eating raw food to keep its 30 billion neurons firing. Now, for us to fuel our 86 billion neurons on that same raw diet, we would need to eat for over 9 hours every single day. It's just not possible. By this math, we shouldn't exist. So if a raw food diet couldn't have gotten us here, what did? The answer isn't some new biological trick. It was a technological one. A revolution that happened not in our genes, but in our kitchens. Cooking, it's that simple and it's that profound. See, cooking is basically using fire to pre-digest your food outside your body. It makes food softer, way easier to chew and turn into mush, and it lets your gut absorb way, way more energy in a fraction of the time. The process was elegant. First, our ancestors got control of fire. Then, they started using it to cook. This unlocked a massive surplus of energy and freed up all those hours they used to spend just chewing. And that energy surplus is what finally allowed us to afford and fuel a bigger, more powerful, neuron-packed brain. All of a sudden, that dangerously expensive brain wasn't a liability anymore. With cooking, it became our greatest asset. We had the energy to run it, and now we had free time not spent chewing, to actually put that brain to use, to develop tools, culture, art, everything. So we know how they got the energy, but what exactly were our ancestors cooking that built these amazing brains in the first place? In a word, everything. Humans evolved as omnivorous foragers. We ate whatever edible plants and animals we could find. And crucially, things from animal sources, like shellfish, eggs, even grubs, provided the essential fatty acids that are the literal building blocks of the brain. They kick-started the whole expansion. When you look at studies of modern foragers, even in places with tons of plants, at least half their diet still comes from animal sources. Animal protein wasn't a luxury, it was a staple. It was the premium fuel for our growing brains. For millions of years, this whole system worked beautifully. But then the world changed, And that forced a dramatic and pretty devastating shift in what some groups of humans could eat. Around 12,000 years ago, the planet started to warm up, the huge ice sheets retreated, and ecosystems everywhere got thrown into chaos. Big game animals disappeared, and for humans who were trapped in regions that became dry and harsh, that diverse foraging lifestyle just became impossible. So to avoid starvation, they started gathering the seeds of wild grasses, and that eventually led to agriculture. But the nutritional difference was just stark. The diet went from being super diverse and packed with nutrients to being very narrow, mostly grain-based, and critically low in that animal protein they needed. The health consequences were catastrophic. You can see it in the skeletons from this period. Adult height actually shrank, life expectancy plummeted, and anemia was rampant. This lack of animal protein almost certainly stunted their brain growth too. They were surviving, yeah, but they were not thriving. And here's the most brutal statistic of all. For toddlers who were weaned from their mother's milk onto a watery grain-based gruel, the death rate from protein malnutrition was 50%. Half of them didn't make it. It's a terrible testament to how essential animal protein really is for human development. So let's bring all this home. What does this incredible and sometimes difficult journey tell us about who we are? Well, it completely flips the story we usually tell about ourselves. We weren't intelligent apes who one day just decided to have a barbecue. No, our ancestors discovered cooking. And that single technological breakthrough unlocked the metabolic door that allowed our brains to become so incredibly powerful. In a very, very real sense, cooking created us. So the kitchen, then, isn't just a place to make meals. It's the laboratory where our species was born. It's the site of the invention that made our brains, our culture, and our entire modern world possible, which really just leaves us with one final thought. Our ancestors built our brains in the kitchen. What are you building in yours?